Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. I love doing these lives. I find that it's an opportunity to kind of share that we've got this great podcast. We've got shows coming out twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday on the BizBook Pub Hub. You can go to bizbookpubhub.com to learn all about it. But without any further delay, let me introduce this episode. Finishing your manuscript is exciting, and you're probably eager to finally see your book out in the world. But the reality is, hitting publish isn't the finish line, it's just the start. Getting your book printed or uploaded online is satisfying, but that's only part of being an author. The real challenge and opportunity is finding readers and building genuine connections with them. It's not about fancy marketing jargon, it's about knowing who your readers are, speaking directly to them, and creating lasting relationships. That's where I come in. I help entrepreneurs plan book launches that are clear, practical, and designed specifically for their audience. Together, we'll figure out exactly who your readers are and the best ways to reach them through virtual events, personal messages, meaningful content, and real conversations. The goal is simple: make your book a valuable asset that grows your business over time rather than a one-time achievement. If you'd like some guidance, let's chat. I'm offering a free 30-minute brainstorming session to discuss your book launch strategy and how it can support your larger business goals. Fill out the form at booklaunchbrainstorm.com to get started. Today's panelists will share their real-life experiences with marketing their business books. They'll talk about what strategies worked, what didn't, and the lessons they've learned. Loren Sanders wrote, "Empathy is a Superpower: 7 Leadership Practices to Increase Engagement and Motivation," which shares personal stories and practical strategies to help leaders build empathy, improve team culture, and drive organizational success through meaningful connections and emotional intelligence. Rael wrote, "Leadership: The Key Ingredient to a Great Budget, 13 and a half Breakthrough Tactics for Doing It Right," which offers essential strategies and insights for financial leaders to enhance their budgeting processes and drive organizational success through effective leadership and financial management. Please join me in welcoming Loren and Ron. Welcome, Loren and Ron. Loren, I'm going to jump right over to you and just get a better sense of who your ideal reader is for the book that you wrote. Like, who do you have in mind as you're writing it?
Sure, Robbie, thank you for that. My book title is actually called Empathy is Not a Weakness and Other Stories from the Edge. And I wrote it for leaders, coaches, people in general, anybody who has ever had to navigate an environment where emotional intelligence is often overlooked or undervalued. This book is for people who want to lead with impact, but struggle with toxic workplaces, difficult personalities, the weight of being the empathetic one in the room. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive or felt like you've had to harden yourself to be taken seriously, this book is for you. But it's also for you if you're someone who struggles with empathy and thinks you don't have empathetic capacity. It's packed with real stories, research, practical strategies, all to show you that empathy is not a liability. It's the key to powerful leadership and real influence.
Empathy is not a weakness, and other stories from the edge. Loren Sanders, I am so sorry for misrepresenting your title at the beginning. I should have checked that before we hit start. I'm really glad you just corrected that, and also share with us a little bit about who you wrote this great, insightful book for. And Ron, tell us a little bit about your book and who your audience is.
The book you referred to is a unique twist on budgeting. Most books about budgeting are about the mechanics and spreadsheets. This is designed for managers, executives, people who don't live in the financial world and who are scared of a budget. I mean, budget just spreads fear through anybody anytime you mention it. And so it's basically for them. And the way to sue them to understand the budget is really about leadership and not about the numbers. It's 13 stories about people who did budgeting really well or budgeting badly. And it's mostly about the leadership aspect of it. So that way the reader could identify themselves and go, oh, I've done that. Or, oh my gosh, now I understand why we had a bad budget that year, because this is something that we didn't do. So it's lessons through true stories. And I believe in stories, and that's just a fantastic way of helping people to connect and understand and see themselves in it, put themselves in that.
I love the half, but I do have to ask you about the half. 13 and a half.
Yes.
Breakthrough tactics.
I use that.
Great marketing, by the way.
Thank you. I use that because at the end of all my presentations and books, that half represents that I've provided you some great information, information that you can use and would make a change, but you have to take that last half step. You have to do the work that it's the ball is in your court now, to use that euphemism.
I love it. So, have either of you written more than one book? Published more than one book? No? Okay. So now I'm curious. I always want to ask that because the frame is really important here. Ron, writing a book, I mean, as people listening are probably feeling it right now as we're trying to do it. There's this like inner voice that for some writers, before they even start writing, maybe because some people who are thinking about writing a book, the inner voice pops in and starts saying things. How did you get past that inner voice? Like, what was your inner voice saying to you? And then how did you move past all that? And then actually you have a book. I mean, like, it's here.
I have many books, and the inner voice was basically saying that you were mistreated as an employee by leaders, people who didn't know how to lead. There's got to be a better way. And so each book became an answer to better leadership. Each time there would be a new question. And so that progressed through many of the early books that I wrote for a particular publisher. And then when I did the budget book, that was when I got onto the stories as a solution. So the book after that is called The Reluctant Leader, and that is designed for the person who defines themselves, and thousands of people define themselves as a reluctant leader. And so it's a solution on why you feel reluctant and what you can do about it. And so it's a fable about a real person, a conglomeration of real people through one character and what her experience was in that. The book that I'm about to publish is the same thing. It's about a young person who's thrown into leadership, and the stories, what he experienced the first 18 months of his life, which I went through that and many other people have. So I felt that inner voice said, Ron, there's another story to tell. There's another story to tell, and be the voice for these characters.
Did you have any reluctance that first time about like, why me? Why should I be writing a book? Or did you just know right away you had a message and it was too strong of a compelling reason to write?
Let's put it this way. They asked me to write a book, and I said, what? How many pages? What do you need? And so I was like, oh my God. So I was the reluctant author. But then I got in front of a computer and dictated my knowledge, and pretty soon I had 200 pages of material.
Amazing. Loren, this is your only book, Loren?
Well, this is the only book that I think is for a broader audience. I wrote a devotional a long time ago after going on a mission trip.
Yeah.
But that's not generally for the audience that I'm looking to connect with here.
Here. Was there any difference in approaching the mindset of writing this book compared to before?
I think they were both similar in that there were things that I needed to get out of my head, and putting them on paper was cathartic for both.
Mm-hmm. When you got started, Loren, thinking about this second book, this book that you have that you're using in your business, were there any particular success metrics that you had in mind? Like, if the book blank, I will know that it was a success. Like, what was important to you back then? And I imagine it's evolved, so we'll talk about how it's changed. But like when you started this process, what was gonna kind of top of mind?
I'm going to make a statement that's kind of weird. I'm a rage writer, so something has to really irritate me in order to get me to start writing something. And I write a lot for my industry in terms of articles, and I always say, here's another rant, and I give it to my editor. So I am very much a data geek, and metrics are important. But when I did this, it wasn't necessarily the type of numbers you would think of that I was looking for. I didn't care if I chased the bestseller list. Anybody can game the system and get there. To me, that's not authentic. I hate it more than anything in the world. And there's some bestseller lists that you can pay to get on. So that's not a good metric in my mind. I was measuring how many people did I engage with who engaged with the content? How many people shared their stories with me or reached out saying that the book helped them show up differently in their roles? Metrics wise, I tracked some reader engagement. I tracked podcast and speaking invitations, which is really where things took off, and how often the key concepts from the book would spark conversations in leadership circles. Book sales matter to me, but the real goal for me is not that. It's creating a shift in the way that people perceive and apply empathy in their leadership and daily lives. And what I saw in the world was everybody loves to talk about what empathy is, but nobody tells you how to get it. So that's what my book is a framework for.
I feel like everyone should just stop and rewind and listen to what you just said again and take some notes, because it's such a spot on approach for any author, particularly I think for a new author who doesn't know like what's what, and they're all being fed these messages about chasing #1 bestseller or pay for #1 bestseller and all this stuff that, you know, it's fleeting at best and $20,000 lost at worst. But I love the idea that we're really talking about like how do we shift the conversation, how do we have an impact, and that you're tracking invitations to be having those conversations, podcasts, stage, you know, opportunities. I have a tendency to basically create content because it's the stuff that bothers me about how people conduct their work. You know, I created an entire business around Zoom. I became this like virtual event design consultant and an executive Zoom producer because I could not stand how people were doing it. And I was like, you know, here it was like my training could have been Robbie's pet peeves and how to avoid them. Like that would have been a great title for my Zoom training. So we'll talk in a moment about some other things that might be more impactful than the bestseller piece. But Ron, how about for you? I mean, you've now had a few different books come out. Does it change for you what you think is important back when you first got started and you were sort of, it sounds like you were voluntold to write a book, and now that you're doing it by choice?
I could break it down into 3 phases. The first one was when I was voluntold. It was a great opportunity. They took care of the marketing. They did the production, everything. I was just the contract author. And then the royalties came in. So I thought, oh, this is pretty easy to be an author. The first true leadership book, the one you referred to, The Budget Leader, that one was where the second phase started. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I measured the success on the response I got from the stories when I presented them in live audiences, and people responded to the stories and said, oh yeah, that sounds like me. So I put them in the book, and then sort of left it, figured that it would find its own marketplace and things like that. The people that I did engage with who had read the book said, oh wow, this is really cool, and I like it and I can share it, but that's I was too busy to support it. The second book, The Reluctant Leader, that's when I really got serious about addressing the reluctant leader syndrome, which is widespread, and then said, all right, I'm going to do the story and tell the persons. And then I would start supporting it by marketing. I didn't have any idea of metrics. I think my only metric was when somebody read it and gave me feedback and said, oh yeah, that's me, I understand that, things like that. So it unfortunately didn't, it just sat in the bookstore from neglect. Gave a lot of copies away. This new book that I'll be launching very soon, that's phase 3, where I'm going to follow all your recommendations and really pay attention to it and listen to the success stories, like the ones that you have mentioned before, but also a particular person here who seems to be doing it right. So if you could say I'm an example of how not to do it. And so I plan to be an example of how to do it, thanks to your guidance and Loren's comments and other people's suggestions.
Ron, I so appreciate your honesty on this journey, because it is real. It is familiar. It resonates. It's gonna make a lot of people feel that they're not alone. And it's one of the best reasons to keep writing more books, because none of us figure it out on the first go around. No matter what we think we figured out, there's always something else to figure out. For me, my first book, I nailed the review part because I got it in my head that was going to be social proof. And I did it. I know how to network. My book was about networking. So I did that, but I didn't already have the offer nailed. So I had the book, and then I sort of was like, well, now I'm going to create a thing. And I went to Dory Clark, who's been a longtime friend. And I think of her as a mentor. And I said, I'm thinking about creating some sort of, my book was just out like maybe 2 months earlier, some sort of online program or course or mastermind. And she said, you're going to learn a lot. And I walked away feeling both good and also realizing that was a prophecy, not advice. And in my second book, I wrote about the journey that I went on to try to figure out that next iteration of leveraging the book content. And then I said, I'm never going to publish a book again without having something in place. And that something may change as it evolves, but I have to at least have a pilot in place for an idea of how the book will turn into other sales. But so yeah, so I think anyone who's feeling a little lost in this process, it's helpful to know that you learn from being around other authors. This is one of the reasons BizBook Pub Hub hosts these free virtual networking events for writers and authors every other month. The opposite month, I host one for speakers. We are kind of all these things. So every month I'm hosting some sort of gathering because I think this is how you look around the corner at something you can't see. Someone tells you, oh, by the way, look for this. And then you go, oh, and then you see the opportunity that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. So, I want to shift now, actually, Loren, to something that you did pretty well here, which is the review process. And that's kind of a happy place for me and a groan fest for a lot of other people. So first, a couple of things to clarify. There are ratings and there are reviews. Ratings are those 5 stars. You can do 1 through 5 stars. You don't have to buy the book and you don't have to write anything. And if you ever go to a book's page and there's like 223 ratings, but there's a way to click through and see that they have 7 written reviews. It's like, what was that about? And that author is probably walking around telling people that they have over 200 reviews. Not so. Written reviews are really hard to get. And so I look at quantity, recency, quality of the reviews, and also the ratio between the ratings and the reviews, because that shows me a certain kind of campaign was run. And the reason I focus on quantity, recency, and quality is that all those are important in algorithm for Amazon search algorithm. So if they're going to put in a keyword, so for Loren, if they put in empathy, leadership, something like empathy in the workplace, something like that, your book is going to have a higher ranking on the search page because you have more reviews. And then verified reviews get weighted more heavily. So if you have people buy your book before they leave a review, Amazon knows that. So Loren has 35 ratings and 28 written reviews. Anything over 20 tells me you made an effort, because I see so many books that get published that don't even hit 10 or 12. Ron, I wasn't actually going to call you out, but Ron's like, that's me. Ron's like, you're funny, Ron.
Reviews? What are reviews? Why should I ask people for reviews?
Yeah, these are the things we learn. That your next book's going to have 400 reviews because of this conversation. I love it. So Loren, how did you approach this in your launch? Why do you even think reviews were important? And then how did you go about getting so many people to write them?
I would say every time that I talk in a podcast or do something related to my book and people tell me that they've read it or they want to buy it, I always ask them, if it means anything to you, would you please write me a review? Because the review is really what matters to me. Am I doing what I set out to do? For me, it's more of a metric of success. Am I touching your soul? Is it making a difference to you? And what's funny is one of the written reviews is someone who didn't even read my book. They were going to read my book, but it's kind of a funny story, so I'll tell you. I was doing a speaking engagement in Indianapolis, and the night before I had dinner and I was like, oh, Benihana looks kind of good. And I was a single human being walking into a Benihana, and they sat me at a table with this newly married couple who were just starting their life together and I had been talking to them. They had gone through all kinds of trials and tribulations to get where they were. They were very young, and they asked me what I did, and I told them what I did, why I was there. And I felt in my soul that I should pick up their check that night, and I did. And I had given them my business card. We had talked about a lot of things, and that's all I thought of it. I just thought, this is the right thing to do in this moment for this couple that has been through so much. How nice would it be to just pick up their check and give them just a little bit more than they had in terms of the kindness that was there. And they wrote a review of my book with, they even say on it, we didn't read the book, but we know she stands for what she's saying. To me, out of all of the reviews of my book, just that statement or that comment that I'm not just here to tell something that's not true, that I actually try to live out my message makes a difference. And if you've read my book, you know it starts with a story of how I was once a toxic leader who was unempathetic. So don't tell me you can't do it, because I am proof that you can change your entire life this way. And to me, it's just asking people, hey, if it made a difference to you, tell me. I'll read the reviews. I read them all.
That's wonderful. And I clearly, I mean, you have reviews going from right when your book came out and all the way up until like a few months ago. Like, people are continuing to leave reviews, and which is to say, Ron, that you don't have to not get reviews for your earlier books too. I mean, it is a lot of practice. I feel like there is an art form in remembering to ask. People say nice things all the time, I'm sure, in an email or a social post about stuff that we're doing. But then it's remembering to then say, oh, if it was meaningful to you, what would be amazing for me is if you would take that comment and share it on LinkedIn as a recommendation. Or if you are looking for Amazon reviews, it's like, oh, you loved my book. Could you copy that and share it through this Amazon link? Like, you just kind of have to like ask for that next step. But people want to share how it hit them, what it meant for them, and what they're going to take action on. And others want to know that too. The reason I focus so much on reviews is that there's studies that say more than 90% of buyers check reviews before making a purchase, which I don't even need to cite this study for all of us to agree that that's true, because we are that 90%. Like, we are those people. There are, strangely, and I checked this, I'm writing a book right now called Don't Just Hit Publish, Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews and Revenue. And I have found reviews for toilet paper, every brand of toilet paper, on Target.com and on Amazon.com. I don't know who these people are that go out of their way to write reviews for toilet paper, but they exist. That is the way less than 10%. That's a very tiny percentage of people in the world who are writing. In the world of Yelp.com, these are the elite Yelpers that are going to tell you about everything. But that just means that a very small percentage of people have an outsized influence on whether people are going to buy your book. So 20 is not an enormous number, but their influence can have a huge impact. I ask my authors that I work with to get 50 or more, because it requires a whole process of engaging with their network of likely prospects and referral partners, and really generates the buzz that lets them build the pipeline to the offer that comes after. It's like the reviews are sort of the focus, but the real purpose of this is the engagement with their network. But whoever's listening to this, go get 5 more reviews in the next 3 months. Like, just that alone, having them trickle in, will help with their search results. We'll get a few more people buying it, and will make you easier to sell for speaking engagements, podcast. I mean, as a podcast host, I was always surprised to get pitched by a PR company when the person like had, 7 ratings and 4 reviews. I'm like, that's a lot of money to spend pitching for something that's not converting. Loren, what would you like to add?
I was just thinking about some of the reviews I have are from people that have reported to me in the past, which is super meaningful. And I was just thinking, Ron, if there were people that reported to you that know that you are who you say you are, that would really hold some water.
We have to be a little careful with the language that's put in these reviews, because if it sounds like I've known you, like you actually, Loren, have a review that says like I've known this person for a long time. It's always a little iffy, because their AI might catch something and think, you've known each other since kindergarten, huh? Oh no, this is a biased review. So it can't be too salesy, and it can't be too close of a connection. I'm just trying to reiterate some of the rules from the Amazon world. But yes, I do think people who know you walk your walk and have experienced your work are great people to bring into this experience of reading your book and writing a little 2 or 3 sentences about it. Ron, other than reviews, and now that you've written multiple books, and this is a curious question, what else is the challenge for you? Like, you're getting ready to work on another book, you're in the process of another book. Like, Are there still challenges to this process? Is it about finding the right team members to work with you? Like, where do you see the bumps in the road?
So you're asking what would I do different in terms of getting that help and support in the reviews, or
No, just
the sort
beyond
of the
challenge,
internal?
beyond reviews, just the general experience of writing, editing, publishing, and marketing a book. Like, where in that journey do you feel most challenged? And like, is it easier because you now have better support?
Well, now I have better support, but I think it's more of the knowledge and hearing the experiences, like for instance, Loren, um, in terms of putting it out there that she has this book, and then getting people to respond. I think that I would take a page from somebody out here in Seattle who launched a book very successfully, and not only did it go to the top of the Amazon list, but also he got many speaking engagements. Was he proceeded to see many people beforehand and ask them, "I'd like you to write to read my book and write a review," and then he did follow up to do that, and he did get some reviews, and I've heard that story from others. So that's planted the seeds, and then those people referred the book to other people who did the reviews. So his first reviews were just an ask. Then the later reviews were as a result of other people talking about it. So he was able to create some buzz through those individuals, and the ultimate success, at least for him and for me, would be to get speaking engagements and consulting engagements, because there are some asks with my new book. By the way, Loren, it happens to be on empathy, so I'm excited to read your book, and then hopefully you'll read mine to
Ditto,
see
ditto,
that.
yes.
I love this.
Yeah.
This happens all the time, Ron and Lauren, where two people are on a panel because you're literally your schedule availability, and then there's always some uncommon connection that you find as we're having these conversations. So this is a really lovely one that you're going to be able to connect on. And Ron, what you just alluded to with the person that you know locally, this is my process as well. And I just shared that if you want to book a call with me at booklaunchbrainstorm.com, I offer a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorming session. And my process is building a launch team filled with likely prospects and referral partners. I'm not promising that I'm getting reviews for you. I'm not selling a review process or review service, or I don't know what you'd even call it. I'm helping the author make the invite list from their network based on who would be most energized by the content of the book, or could introduce you to people who would be, etc. And then I have a whole process of how to bring them in, give them the advanced review copy, give them some prompts, give them a form to collect the review. Maybe there's a private training for them about your content. And then when the book gets published, there's a soft launch period between the publication date and the date we announce it to the world, which is about 2.5, 3 weeks. And in that time frame, we get all the reviews that were gathered ahead of time and more published, so that by the time we shout it from the rooftops, their books got sales. If it was going to hit number one, it's going to happen during that soft launch, because you've got people are buying your book, and if you chose categories well, and then the reviews stay forever, like there's social proof in that book sales page for whatever you're doing, and then we could have a launch party and have all kinds of fun. So you and everyone else is welcome to book a call with me and have that conversation, no matter where they are in their process. I have a question about marketing strategies. Loren, do you have any effective marketing strategies that specifically led to book sales? I know that the focus on individual book sales is not forever, like that's mostly from the beginning, but were there other things that moved volumes of books, whether it was like bulk orders or something creative? I'm just kind of curious how you were able to bring the book into the packages that you offer, or something like that.
Well, I had already had a pretty good following in terms of public speaking and speaking events. So a lot of times I would give away books at different events. But for me, it was really storytelling and treating marketing like I treat coaching. As a ICF certified coach, I really believe in let's make it about the human being. Let's not just focus. I don't want to just focus on promoting a book. That to me, I'm very stuck on things that don't feel authentic or feel kind of cringy and salesy. I typically tend to pull out real stories and insights and share them, either in posts or on podcasts or in speaking engagements, because I feel like people don't buy books because you tell them to. That's not why people buy them. They buy them because they see themselves in your message or they feel something and connect to it. And the more I connect with my audience by sharing the heart of the book in a relatable way, the more people want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's important to me. Again, I wish I could tell you, it sounds like I don't want to make money at all. That's not true. I just don't want to do it in a way that's not authentic and real. And I want to make every person better. And I always joke that I'm on this quest to rid the world of toxic leaders because I really think it can be done.
It's also really amazing to have someone who had been in that space as a toxic leader sharing this story. It's maybe not a fair equivalent, but it's like a person who leaves a cult now talking about it's possible to change your behavior. It's possible to think, like, shift your worldview. It's possible, to live who you really are. Like because it really is this like such a strong dynamic. You can get really stuck in that because how we act and then how people then respond to us, this reinforces this message. So kudos that you both sidestep that amazingly, but also have the ability to write about it and share a message that others can then cling to and find as a way forward for themselves. Ron, how have you approached moving books in volume in some way? Like, what's been your strategy? Again, if you're giving it away, or whether it's sales of books, or I don't know, book clubs, like what's been your best way of getting lots of books moved out of a warehouse somewhere to people's hands where they could read them?
Well, as I said, I haven't been successful doing that, but for the new book, I'll clearly have a different approach. And so my goal, of course, is to be able to do presentations and keynotes. And then as part of that they would be able to purchase books for each person in the audience or for their employees. The same thing with the consulting part of it is that the employees would get the books as well, and the client would pay for those. So doing that. Going to the question you asked, Loren, in terms of marketing strategy, in addition to just speaking, I will also have an updated podcast where I'll be talking to people who have nurtured leaders who are doing a good job of it, and then ask their best practices so I can share it and engage them in conversation, and then use another strategy to do very tailored short YouTube videos on elements of it. And then refer to my updated website where there's more information on that. So this time I'm being very, very strategic in planning on that. And by the way, you're going to be part of my team. So you had asked, do I have the right people in place? Yes. I do. Can I ask you a question?
Please, yeah.
You had talked about the ethics of that, and Loren talked about seeding bestsellers and things like that. One idea that I'd heard from somebody was that after a person does a review, and if you happen to know them, give them a gift of some sort. And so the example was like a $5 Amazon card, because they probably are on Amazon. I'd like to know your thoughts on that in terms of, Loren, does it feel authentic? Robbie, does it feel something?
There's an ethical answer, and then there's also the fact that it's against Amazon's rules.
I'm making faces because it's cringy to me. I just wouldn't.
So there is the ethical conversation we could have about whether that is a good idea. But like logistically, if Amazon knows that your only thing you're allowed to give is a free or discounted copy of your book. So you can give the advanced review copy. You can lower your book price to 99 cents. You can lower your book to $0 if you have Kindle KDP Select. But you cannot, you can't put them in a raffle. You can't give them a consult call. You can't give them a gift card. People do this all the time. I'm sure you do too, Loren, because you're paying attention to this. I see it in people's like launch promo a lot, and I will privately message them and just say like, that's not a really good idea. Like, and it's also what I find I'll go into less ethics and more the psychology of it. It actually weakens the connection you have with the reviewer, because they were doing something altruistically. They were doing something to help you. They felt like, this is actually really good. I feel good that I can help this author share this message. And then you honor that by giving them a $5 gift card, which now turned what they did into a transaction, which makes it less of a, we were building something as a relationship together, and more of a, I did this for the $5 Starbucks gift card or $5 Amazon gift card. So I don't think it actually nurtures your connections. And if you're having to buy your way into reviews, I just think your whole process is off. So there are companies where, I don't know, I just was talking to a publisher this weekend at a conference who said, oh, we make sure everyone gets 200 reviews. And I was like, how do you do that? And she said, I mean, I think we pay people for their time. I don't know. It's not my department. And I was like, cringe. This is to borrow a word from Loren. Yeah. So no, I think, Ron, it's really about engaging with people who would really understand the value of what you're doing. And that's why they want to participate. It's about creating a community around it. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because I don't think we've addressed that specifically on this show. And it is something I keep seeing. But one of the other things, Ron, I got to put you back in the hot seat, because you got a new book. So let's talk about your new book now. So, because you still have time to like put some of these things into practice. When someone's reading your new book and they are like, wow, I love this new book, this is amazing, how are they going to be able to find you? And what's the next thing they could do with you for free or money? And you don't have to have that answer today. I just want you to be thinking about the pipeline between the book and your next offer, which is the speaking or the consulting. And I like, what have you thought about that for your other books, and what are you thinking maybe for this new one?
I apologize. I only heard part of that. There's some kind of disturbance in the force today, and I heard the last part. But I know that you asked let's see, going back to. So basically, you're just asking, do I have the time? Yes, I have the time, and now I have the plans, and I'm learning from you and others on what to do. So I expect to have a really good one. And as I honestly mentioned earlier, since this is really new to me, I would prefer to go slowly and do it properly, and rather than do it forced and make mistakes. So I'm being patient, and I appreciate your guidance.
Awesome. And Loren, how would you answer that question? Because, you clearly had a speaking business already in place before the book came out. So how do the two tie together? Like, if people are reading your book, Loren, like, do you have bonus content or, QR codes, links, email? Like, how do people find you and then get into your ecosystem?
My book has a website attached to it or they can download, if they don't want to write in the book, the pages to do the writing part. I believe, and I don't remember actually, if my book also has my social contact in it, at least on LinkedIn. Also, every time I speak or meet people, I encourage them to connect with me on LinkedIn, because while I haven't written another book, I do quite a bit of content on LinkedIn. Again, all rage or rant writing. I have a weekly newsletter that you don't have to subscribe to. I publish it on every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how busy my week is, called Emotional Adventures in the Office, where we look at things from different perspectives and ways to be successful. But for me, it's not the point, I guess. If I could just sum up, advice I would give someone is write and market the book your ideal client needs, not the one you feel like writing because you think you should write a book. I mean, it's so much deeper than that.
I love it. I think that's so true, that a lot of authors, especially for their first book, are writing a book that they have in them, but they haven't checked to see if anyone else was waiting for that book to happen. They just feel really like called to write the book, but sometimes there might be a different book that has to come first, maybe a foundational book, or something, or they need to find an audience for the book they have in mind. So they are writing to a specific person. Like, leadership, broadly speaking, applies to like every single person on the planet, which is like not a good market. It's like complicated, you know. So I do think that narrowing that down to either a person, a situation, a context, and then writing a book will help that book find its audience after. And that's one of the reasons I built out BizBook Pub Hub was the referral partners in the hub, the experts who are helping with writing, editing, publishing, and marketing are the people who are going to ask you those strategic questions every phase, because we understand that you're an entrepreneur writing a book to help you grow your business. And we don't want you just to hit publish. We don't want you just to like throw 12 blog posts together and make a mini book, right? We want this to have that impact that Loren was talking about. We want this to have that, like, it's a conversation starter. And that's not going to happen if the author's not given the prompts to keep resituating their book to what's needed in the marketplace and to the audience that they've been nurturing all along. So thank you for just raising all of that. Been great, Loren. Ron, as we close up here, do you have any advice for a person who is writing a book to help them grow their business?
Definitely, I do. I heard this early in my career, and I followed it, even though I may have forgotten a couple of times. And that is to imagine the reader to the specifics of their age, their gender, their background, other things about them, and of course their problems. So the book that I'm launching that very soon is a story that I've heard from many CEOs and others who run technology companies. I have all these very smart, talented people, and yet they don't want to lead. They don't have any empathy at all. What can I do? So that's what this book is about. So my suggestion to them is really think about that. You can't be, as you said, a book for everybody. It's got to be a specific audience. If other people benefit it, excellent, but that's the one you want to. Then it helps marketing easily because your message is very clear, the speeches that you want to give, the audiences you want to talk to, the follow-up articles, things like that. And then with LinkedIn, being able to slice and dice data, you should be able to reach out to those. So I will, I've been following it. Now this time I will completely take it to heart and do that. So my first target will be both technology companies and finance industries, because both of those have this issue with many of their employees.
I love this. I'm really excited for this next book that you've got, Ron. And you know, we have the Kindle cross promotion campaign, which is how we all connected. It's happening 3 times a year: April, July, and November. So whenever the book comes out, we can situate that to be part of your launch success, so you can have a little on ramp to the rest of how people can find your book. So speaking of which, Ron, how can people find you and follow your work?
They can reach me at ron@highroadinstitute.com. And also this new book, I'm redoing an older URL I have. So it's ron@ronrael.com. So that will be in the book, that will be on the website. So this way I can measure and tell if my inquiries and things like that come not as a result of my previous books and work, but on this new one. So ron@ronrael.com, and it'll be www.ronrael.com as well.
Fantastic. I put all these links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Loren, how can people find you and follow your work?
I would say the best way is LinkedIn, or you can reach me directly at Loren with an O. I spell my name the right way. .Sanders at Roxlow, ROXLO coaching.com.
Fantastic. We're going to put links to your social, to your books, all your your websites, I should say. Everything will be available in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com, which is also where you'll find show notes for all the previous shows that are happening. New episodes are released every Tuesday and Thursday. You'll also find all the experts that can support you in writing a book, free virtual networking event every month. God, there's so many goodies there. Oh, and information about the Kindle cross promotion campaign. So check all that out at bizbookpubhub.com. Loren, Ron, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Robbie. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you, Loren.
Nice.